I dare say it, they'd be off one of the neighbour's sheep, I would suspect. A little incident before with an egg that had been deserted and left to go cold, and turned out, well, yeah, it was going to turn into a chick before it was staying cold, apparently, but anyway, shouldn't have deserted it. You may have heard of fetal duck eggs in China. It's a little silver eye, I believe, looking around amongst the plums. It's just down there. You may have heard of fetal duck eggs in China. I think they boil eggs that they know have got duck embryos in them, and it's one of the more bizarre Chinese foods. Yeah, not that we ate it. Let's have a look at this thing. These are Australian made in South Australia. That's your damper, I believe. Your door handle looks a little bit upside down. Burn on the hardwood. See the damper. Fire bricks up against the back there. I don't know what this shenanigan is all about. Maybe to help protect the base or something. I don't know. Good quality anyway. Brand spanking new. There's your heat guard, heat shield, sheet metal. Your bit that goes in the roof. And the flue kit. The flue kit's about $600 each. Sometimes the wood heater himself is only $600. Yep. That's sort of back to front from mine. Well, mine's actually a sort of a different deal altogether. It's good to have this to catch any of the blooming embers that fall out. Wonder where that's going. Oh, hang on, yeah. Yeah, there's a little... There's your damper where it takes you here in initially, then it goes over this, and you've got this piece here. This piece here has the damper there. I have heard of some that they... A little bit smart, what they try and do, it's a bit sort of gasifier style, where some of your smoke will have carbon monoxide, and so what they do is you actually have it, and this is probably one of them, where it goes through a second time. So your smoke will come up, but then they've got some way of reforcing it back through. It's like the smoke might go around actually twice before it goes out the flue. So it's almost like as though the air intake is made up of 30% or 50% of the smoke that was about to go up the flue, in an effort to do a secondary burn of any carbon monoxide that's still left in there. And that's probably something to do with that. I know they've got it in the real high-end wood heaters, not the cheapos, and this is, well, sort of, definitely not a cheapo, but not the $5,000 job either. But it is a very renowned company, so I'd be surprised if that was part of the secondary burn. It's just some of them I've seen. They've got like an angled plate in the top, which sort of allows a secondary burn, and some of the incoming air is mixed with part of the smoke, just to guarantee that it burns all the as much carbon monoxide as it can, as opposed to just letting it all go up in the chimney. As you guys may or may not know, wood gas from a gasifier is 20% hydrogen and 20% carbon monoxide, and they are the two elements that burn, and you got a bunch of other random crap which is often taken out by the filters, and the majority of the remains is actually nitrogen, which is 75% of the air is nitrogen anyway. But yeah, carbon monoxide burns, and of course hydrogen does, and they try and get as much burn as they can out of that wood. Those figures, of course, are when you're putting nice hardwood into your gasifier. Yeah, it's been raining for about the last hour. It's got it really done with a gutter. I don't think it's doing too well hitting the end of this. What's doing, buddy? You camera shy, buddy. You camera shy. What about big doggy? You look! It's an orange spotted cock. You're a little bit wary of me, aren't you, hey? Not too sure about all this crap. Keeps coming in the caravan. He's got different codes of barks depending on if the dog's coming, if there's food, where the food, well, like the food's where I am now, and if the dog's coming fast, there's a bit more, there's an extra bark than if it's coming slow. Are you wary of me? Can I eat you? Big doggy. Calculated risk. Calculated risk. Calculated risk. I'm not going to hurt you, buddy. It's all right. Dun, 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 dun. Now you reckon, buddy, I should put you up on this seat. Certain babies making a mess of noodles, and you may get a few little bits of wheat. Ooh, this bathroom we done yesterday. So come up alright, another 70s special. I think it's coming to be grandparents. That'd be grandfather's stash of wallpaper. No, that's a keg. This is what the brother-in-law's got. There's this bizarre fridge. I think you got to flip the front over to get a keg. And to put the keg in and out, you've got the controls there, which don't want to show properly because this is the crap of the thing. Temperature up and down on your left. The actual temperature in Celsius. Press the button again, it'll change to Fahrenheit. Yeah, your flat beer that comes out that goes flat rather quick. Carbon dioxide bottle to charge it up, so this makes sure that the keg doesn't go flat basically. Yeah, not very common, and I don't think very cheap either. That gives your own personal beer keg. It's not bad, it does go flat quick like I said, but the sort of stuff I only used to see when I was delivering kegs to pubs. Well, I mean, they didn't even have this as it was industrial setup, of course, but I used to deliver beer kegs quite a bit. At one point when I was driving trucks. Heavy bastards of things, some of them 64 kilos, so we're talking like, holy smoke, probably 140 something pounds per keg. And I knew this guy who was not very bright but very enthusiastic, and he would lift these 64 kilo kegs straight in on his own, and I'd be like, holy smoke, how are you not damaging your back or something? There's her claws and a little bit, yeah, just moved in on the right. That's its nose. Poor little turd. It's cold outside and it's come back obviously. May have never left actually, but there's a nice barn over there. Should just go over into the barn. Somebody's found a dry space. They're not going to stay in there. Somebody's going to get them in there. Peacock standing on a drum. It's an old billy. It's got a handle that hangs that you can see there on the upper right hand side. Got to show you guys this one. That's one I pulled out, just demolishing a wood box beside the fireplace. That's one plank, and I've got to hold it down pretty low to fit in the camera because that is a foot wide, easily. Put this so you can actually see it with this hopeless camera. Yeah. Yeah. That's a sign of older houses, foot wide planks. It's a bit like the ones on my kitchen wall. They often tend to get splits in them. This one isn't as split as most. And some of them in there, they've sort of split where their nails are. Of course, it doesn't help when there's people throwing logs against them and rebounding the logs off them either. How's that? This is zombie vine. From last year, zombie vine. Now it's flat. It's creeping in between a beam and some bricks. Or something like that. So that from there to there, that's the thickness of the wood I think that it's gone through. That's just part of me stuff I could see in there in my demolition I had to pluck out. This is not tea, this is actually a coffee bag. I don't know how often you see this in the States, but we have them here, and they're pretty bloody strong. At one point I couldn't handle drinking it because I'd get a headache. I used to stick to the instant stuff instead, but brother-in-law likes those ones quite a bit. We're being eyeballed. This is about the best look I've got at him. Oh, that's a good look. It's dark, but it's a good look. I think that's mixing a bowl with it or something. See his balls hanging down there. You should have seen him when he was wet. I say so, yeah. I don't know. I got no idea. Yeah, this is a picture. Very well. Oh, nice. You go and get him, doggy. You go and get him. This dog can't catch food because one of its eyes isn't quite as good as it should be. So I don't know how good it's going to be at catching possum. Yeah, he's a little bit cold, isn't he? That is pork. That is actually off a feral pig, and previous ones have tasted very good. Not a wild pig, because pigs aren't native here, a feral pig. Something to do with pigs apparently. When they live in close quarters they need a lot of antibiotics in their feed and other such stuff. and it is not very level. And if they're out in paddock, free range, they don't need all the antibiotics. But I believe they can get sunburnt rather easily, and may get cold rather easily. But in the wild, I think they make these big bizarre nests out of straw. They sort of have their litter of piglets in them, and they may find shelter on their own. Not an expert on feral pigs, to be honest. All I know is most of them are usually black.
It's a different time.
This is what happened to the pig that stuffed my thumb up. Game over, bitches. Okay, people. I'm sitting here down in the barn. It's been raining pretty much all day. Just eating a few plums I bought from home. Kids went and picked some of the plums on the tree and got a whole bunch that, really speaking, weren't right worth a cracker. Bit of a waste of plums, but my sister said, oh, it doesn't matter, we get hundreds of kilos of plums here. But anyway, not a great deal is happening, as you may notice if you watched last year's time I spent down here. We were going like cut snakes previously. Now we're just playing around with a few demolitions and a bit of wallpaper. And hasn't been terribly hectic days. She said that it's not likely to be quite as hectic. Fortunately, not a great deal of footage to show as a result. Yeah, both my brother-in-law and my sister have talked to me about a few engineering things and whatnot, which has sort of been interesting to know, even involving fire ratings and things like that. Yeah, not a real busy run, and there's sometimes when you can't really do a great deal when you got rain like this. You just sort of stalled because of, you know, you can do inside jobs, but then the things like going and buying plasterboard don't really happen because it's too wet, but we're going to have a go at that tomorrow, and, you know, just sort of things you could do if it was clearer, you can't do, and it sort of makes the day a little bit miserable too when it rains all the time, but it was expected that we were going to get a lot of rain in January anyway, and we had a very dry winter, and this has been predicted, and they don't know if it's going to go back dry after this or we're going to get more rain or what's going on. They're sort of lost on the forecast apparently, but they did expect rain in January, and well, here it is. Anyway, I just hope I'm getting all this at home. Anyway, people, it has been unfortunate that I haven't been able to show as much footage as you may have liked to have seen, but just hasn't been that much really to show. I got one thing right for sure, they have probably the biggest freezer of anyone owned in the family. And for those of you who want to know the size of it, I'm not exactly certain, but it is a Westinghouse WCM 7000 WC. And they got it made in the right country too, not China. This is what you tend to get when you live in the country. Plenty of meat in the freezer, all bagged up by yourself. Although, looks like somebody owns one of those little tape things I used to see at the grocery store as a kid, where you whack the tape through and it seals it and cuts it off on the one hit. This has probably come from their neighbours, who are fastidiously fussy about their food and butcher a lot of their own meat. And I believe some of this is pig, and that's probably lamb. Bucket of ice. Plums. There's a whole heap, whole shit ton of apple in little, well, bigger bags than that, all stacked underneath there. Oh, there's different sauces they've made up and frozen them as well. I'm just going to get a few lame chops for myself. A lot of this is actually empty under there. All this under here is all completely empty under these baskets. That's the way it goes. You get a lot of stuff and you store up a lot of stuff because you produce a lot of food when you live out in these areas. By hell, that's a big freezer. There we go. This is a bit smarter. R600A. In the States they've actually banned that, but they've got it in Europe. It's isobutane or something like that. You can look up refrigerant gases and find out what it is. I think it's isobutane, but it's flammable. So you can't use a normal thermostat with contacts. You've got to use like a thermosistor sort of a setup coupled with a switching transistor or something like that. And yeah, but it is highly, highly efficient. I mean, shockingly efficient. Now, yeah, rated storage volume 670 litres. Gross storage volume 700 litres. An IBC, like your 275 gallon tote, they are 1,000 litres. So it gives you an idea of the inside space in this thing. It's 0.95 of an amp, which, ballpark, you're looking about, that'd be about 235, nearly 240 watts. Now, if this was, oh gosh, let's say it was R134A. I know one that's 0.92 amps that is literally, runs off R134A. It's 0.92 as opposed to 0.95, but it is literally only a quarter the size. So you get 4 times the freezing capacity for pretty much a similar amount of electricity. And that is why I like R600A. Anything with R600A, refrigerant gas is guaranteed to be a hell of a lot more efficient. Even over R134A, which is what my car fridge uses, but I don't have a problem because mine's run off solar power. This is an old one that we were given by my grandparents, or my parents were given by my grandparents, 5 years ago? Yeah, 5 or 6 years, and they replaced it with a new Chinese-made one that gave them a hell of a lot of grief. Anyway, this thing here, I'll have a look at the ratings on this. It's Japanese-made by Sanyo, refrigerant 12, which would have been many years ago. This thing, I think, came out of the 80s or something. I think it was built in the 80s. Probably been made in Japan. 0.8 of an amp. This thing here is literally 1/5 the size, or less, than that one there. So that gives you a bit of an idea of what you're dealing with. The freezer that I was saying, the R134 freezer, that's a chest freezer, is probably about half again as big as this, I'd say. And maybe a little, a couple of inches taller. But yeah, that gives you an idea of what it's like. As you change refrigerant gases, things go a lot better. But in changing the refrigerant gas, you need to change the oil that the compressor uses sometimes. But, it's not an easy thing to change refrigerant gas, although there are qualified people that do that sort of stuff, as well as that kind of thing to commercial systems and car air conditioning systems, like I had on my air conditioner last year. Had a compressor replaced, only had 2/3 the amount of gas it was supposed to have in it, and but you really wouldn't worry in this day and age. You just go buy another one unless you are a refrigeration mechanic yourself. Anyway, And let these defrost. Just looking through these old papers again. Not going to believe it, that's the one on the tractor. A lot of this page, this paper seems to just be a lot of advertising. It's home insulation. That's actually the front page. And then you got Grow Gladioli. They probably got paid to flame and whack that on as well. And ads for four-wheel trailers. Entirely new in Australia, refrigerated road transport. And this mob basically sells trailers and setups for trucks and whatnot. A lot of ads in that. But economics, we have to stop our money going mad. This was like I don't know if it's price controls or what it is, but not price controls, but a deliberate thing with raising the minimum wage. And the basic wage rises again soon, so will prices. And the basic wage, goes up 6 shillings, and all your expenses go up 7 to 8 shillings. When workers object, that's right, when workers object to higher wages, something's radically wrong with the nation's economy. Most Australian wage earners will receive a rise of at least 6 shillings a week next month and shudder at the consequences. We're talking, cost of living adjustments, where, you know, your minimum wage goes up due to what they like to term cost of living adjustments. And he says, cost of living adjustments are now a major inflationary force. And if the value of the pound deteriorates anymore, there'll be economic chaos, that guy's saying. Now this is July 13th, that's right, 1951. So, a lot of these tricks have all been played before and haven't really worked terribly well before. But they're still trying stuff, you know, today like this all over the world, even though they're saying that minimum wage increases is what is now a major inflationary force as of 1951. Very interesting, some of the things in here. Tony will love this one. I shouldn't be folding these. This old bird here celebrated a 90th birthday yesterday, but she took up smoking at the age of 80. Is constipation a contributory cause of your skin trouble? Get these health crystals. Good blimey. Cures everything. Irregularity, neuritis, boils, sciatica, rheumatism, pimples, biliousness, which I think means like bloating or something, gout, and blood disorders. Still selling snake oil stuff these days, and they sold plenty of it back then. Old Valve radio. Every component, every finished unit in Philips Jubilee Special has been tested and retested. Philips radio. Keep flicking through, see if I see some more. Stock exchange company news. Some good rises, but leading stocks ease. Show quotations and yields on the stock exchange. Today it's about like 3 pages, full pages, not 1/2 page. Good old days when they used to advertise cigarettes, like back when I was a kid. They still used to advertise cigarettes. Man failed judge and promised to reform. Girl left him. He's keeping company with a girl, but the girl had left him. Judge Curlus, you said you were sorry for the trouble you caused your people and for breaking your mother's heart. You also said, I have learned my lesson, and with all sincerity promised that I will do everything in my power to right the wrong I have done and make my parents proud of me. Yet within 2 to 3 months, Tomlin had committed other offences, His Honour said, as he remanded him to Monday for sentence. Oh! Even racist old ads. Twice the shine and half the time. I don't know, I think that's supposed to be Negro. Pickaninny prepared wax floor polish. Holy smoke. Putting on weight? Get back your youthful slimness. It's easy to slim when you know the secret. No need to drug or diet, just remove the regular fat-forming residues and toxic wastes that are usually the cause of your fatness. Bile beans with the exclusive new ingredient. They thoroughly break up fatty acids, blah, 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 blah. Just take a couple of bedtime. Miss I.L. I give bile beans all the credit for my clear, healthy complexion and my bright spirits. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing to take their place as a tonic and a means to good health. Bile beans. Now you can wear false teeth without embarrassment. Oh, God, blimey. It's some sort of a powder to keep your dentures in. Intriguing. Oh, this is a ripper here. Quirk Sunny Lid. Hygienic lavatory. Fly repellent, no water supply needed, no installation costs. Thousands already in use in munitions factories, air raid shelters, government departments, and country homes. I think it's just a glorious bucket with a lid, pretty much. The outfit is a boom. Mrs. W.E.M. Lower Hawkesbury. 3rd of the 4th, 44. Oh, this one's a December 1944. Let's put this one out. This is we were still at war during that time. Red Cross needs you. Join now. Annual membership. I think that's over £2 or something like that. My father knows how to read all that stuff because he grew up with it. Andrew's liver salt. Excuse me, for inner cleanliness be regular with your Andrews. Ah. Mob the boys, tallow, fats, wool and hides. They still use tallow here actually, and get all the guts and try and, melt the fat off the small intestines or whatever it is, a sheep or there's one of them that's got a lot of fat on the outside of it, and make it into biodiesel. Another one, buys wool. Piggy. Fouch-o-matic, they've still got stuff like that. It's a block that's got like vitamin salts in it and usually held together with a molasses, and it's, you know, sort of, basically the molasses is so full of this stuff that it's only really used just to hold it together, as molasses is often used in that sort of a way, or as a, well, thing for Plus Vita at work. We used to have like vitamins infused into molasses, just so that it's made for horses, but we give it to pigs anyway, just to sort of have it as a medium so the animal will like to eat it. Famous Kuwait wool presses, specially suited for those shearing up to 20,000 sheep. Over 25 of these presses are now in use. Blah blah blah. Made by this mob. Some sort of a hand crank one or something like that. Very old version of what me father's got, most likely. Probably completely different design. It looks flaming big, but I don't think it'd be powered. I don't think so, not in 44. I mean, the fact of the matter was they had energy shortages and fuel shortages back then, so you wouldn't be just sort of there plugging it in. Well, that's the one thing they didn't have dramatic shortages of, was electricity, but then again our generation capacity in 44 didn't even reach most country areas, as my father only got the power on in 53, I think it was. Yeah, 53, pretty certain. Well, it wasn't necessarily reliable power. Back in 51, smart housewives save electricity and save money too. Putting the coins in the piggy bank. Use 2 or 3 saucepans to 1 hot plate. Switch your range off before cooking is complete. Let it just simmer under its own heat. Try cooking a whole meal in the oven at one time. Only 1 wash day a week if possible. That's the old style one, like, I showed a video of one second hand for sale, but that's like what my uncle had, where you get the agitator and then you got like a roller above it. Instead of having an actual spin dry, you got a roller. No good for getting fingers in the wrong place, as you could imagine. Turn down wash boiler as soon as boiling starts. Don't boil a full wash boiler when less will do, when you can get away with not boiling a full one. Don't wash up under running water. I think that's, yeah, it's a water heater, that one. That's a washing machine. Stove, obviously. Use an electric jug for boiling small quantities of water, not your electric range. Economise on hot water by using as small a dish as possible for washing up. Save all day and every way. Help reduce blackouts. Because obviously power was starting to come on with a lot of people, and they realised how convenient it was, and they're probably overflogging the bloody life out of the system, I could well expect. I'll tell you, an honest little truth is, this country has always been a little bit short on infrastructure. Even now, down in the state capital, they, got congested roads. Monash Freeway is called the Monash Car Park, and they started building a tunnel, and then new government got in and they decided they would just throw away $816 million worth of a contract that just, that's it, we're going to change our mind, we've kicked all these people out of these houses, we've already dug big holes in the ground, but now we're just going to stop this road project, because it's not popular. But the thing is, they needed this flippin' tunnel bloody 5 years ago, and yet they've stopped the construction of it for no reason other than political ploys and bullshit, even though the money's already allocated for it, even though it was well on its way, and it was going to inconvenience a lousy friggin' 20 people a week. Fuck them, you know? The whole city is coming to a standstill. A lot of these places, I've been talking to someone else in Western Australia, and you know, as is common in parts of Western Australia, the power just doesn't even get out to these areas. You know, I've seen people question, especially people in England and California and that, question why they have such big trucks going out to the outback. Why don't you put rail in? Well, dude, there's nobody out there. It's not economically, and we've got such a small population. You know, we're looking at like 23 million people, yet, you know, and pouring in massive immigration, but we've still got 23 million people, and you look at the size of the joint, it is 90% the size of the United States with 23 million people. And we just don't have the money to build roads, sealed roads that far, because the population's too sparse. And over in the States, I know you've got houses that are just everywhere. You go to Detroit, you got whole streets, there's only 2 people live in the street. Even if it was a shithole area, you would still have people living there, most likely in Australia. But some mining towns get deserted a little bit. Some of the country towns are rather empty. But, you know, the truth of the matter is, you can spin it every which way you want and try and assume America's massive excess of housing. I've seen things on YouTube where there was a dozen houses that were all but done, you know, like up to a standard like this. The only thing they had to do was put in the internal lining, the electricity, water, like plumbing, and the internal linings, and the houses would have been finished. No, just walked away. Went bankrupt, whatever, walked away. 7-story hotels, top 5 stories done, ready to put people in. The bottom stories just look like the room I was shown the other day. You know, need a bit of plaster doing and painting. That was it. Went bankrupt, walked away. Massive joints. And you come over here and fucking hell, it's like you've got places in the city, and this is quite common, where they rent out individual rooms. So you've got a young couple who gets together, man might be 22, the girl might be 18, 19, and we want to afford our own place. No fucking hope in hell, no credit history, no previous references, and they end up paying $275 or $215 or so, $225, something ridiculous like that for a single fucking room in a house. You know, per week. I'm not talking per month, that's per week, $225. And yet you got people going, oh, you know, we're going to run out of houses in Australia, and like, we're going to hit the wall if you build too many houses. In America, we build too many houses, and the same's going to happen to you in Australia. We've still got a fucking housing shortage, and we're bringing in 2 planefuls of immigrants a week, and yet we don't have enough for the friggin' locals, you know? This is why my sister's living in a place built in the 1800s, you know? This is why initially they were living in this joint, in the barn, as they call it here. It's one of the things, we've always had a lot of shortages, but in all that it keeps people working to make up for these shortages, because there's no excess of product, you know, and it's sort of it's one thing that you've got to understand if you're British or American, that Australia's not, you can't assume the same stuff onto Australia. Plenty of room, but you'll find out that a lot of this massive amount of room that we have in Australia is just godforsaken desert, and some of it's even sand dunes, for fuck's sake. Like, parents went out into an area there is not a single blade of grass for, what would it be, nearly 200 miles. Not a fucking blade for 200 miles. And all these little stones about that big. The only purpose of the joint? Possibly mining and making movies that are based on the moon. Like Pitch Black was made out in that area. If you've ever seen that one with Vin Diesel. Anyway. Speaking of which, this is all not too far from where we are at the moment. The Snowy Mountains Hydroelectric Authority, employing construction engineers, senior work supervisors, employed a hell of a lot of well, immigrants from Italy, Hungary, and stuff like that, who had obviously left what was left of their war-torn, World War II, war-torn countries and the economic slump after the World War II years, and decided that things weren't going to get better soon, so in 1951 decided to come to Australia, and that was around the massive hydroelectric scheme that is actually, let's just say we're near the Snowy River, I'll put it like that. We're not that close to where the hydroelectric gear is, because it was actually, the river has been diverted to set up for this scheme, but that was one of the biggest friggin' projects ever taken on in this country, and they're advertising for people there for it. Right underneath the help reduce blackouts one. Now, I'm lying to you about shortages. We've got a glut of greens. Rates are regular. Heavy supplies of vegetables are again available. Oh, so obviously they weren't available previously, so there you go. We're again available at city markets today, but prices were irregular. Processors operated throughout trading and bought substantial stocks of all greens. The Technicolor is out of this world. Destination Moon staggers the senses. Holy smoke. Here's my place. Mansion of Mystery. Cry Wolf. Not suitable for children. Make your own bricks with a rapid cement brick making machine. Holy smoke. Holy smoke, you curve bricks and everything out of it. That's not bad. I have seen basic ones made out of plywood, used in Vietnam. That's, oh, duster. Yeah, for putting, you're dusting sulphur. Yeah, like we do with vineyards, dusting sulphur onto your trees to stop botrytis and other crap wrecking your stuff. Secateurs, 44 gallon drum pump, which is 55 US gallon, 44 British gallon. Oh yeah! Teletone radiograms. Automatic record changer. Groovy. Australia's finest radiogram value. Chrysler. Actually, seen one of those old Chrysler ones. I've got a couple of radios that are like that, but they don't run, but there's a guy who buys them who I should sell them to, and my father almost decided to smash one up and put it in the bin, and I thought, you are not doing that to a valve radio, no way in hell, not if they're worth something, and not because they're an antique as well. Ooh, stoveoid. Take the drudgery out of stove cleaning with stoveoid, a scientific grease remover. It's probably just lemon caustic soda or something. I would say so. There's much else. Oh! Menzies! Prime Minister Menzies. Holy smoke. Oh, and that would be Chifley. Joseph Benedict Chifley's funeral. Oh yeah, I thought he was Prime Minister. I never remember the name Chifley. Former Labor Prime Minister and Leader of the Opposition will be buried at Bathurst. So to give you an idea of how old that is. 14th of June 1951. Of course, a number of these are similar dates, but it's just surprising to find the 1944 one in there.
And this one's a ripper. Cardinal Spellman has not answered. The following questions were addressed to him by the Reverend George A. You can barely see that, unfortunately. Crapulo. C-R-A-P-U-L-L-O. Crapulo. Imagine being Pastor Crapulo. Flamin' hell. Pastor Crapulo is the pastor of the Irving Square Presbyterian Church, Wilson Avenue, Brooklyn, New York, United States of America. Okay. Oh, the rock. Some sort of a lot of religious stuff by the looks. Protestant thing, I think. Hell of a lot of religious stuff and ads for other churches and whatnot. Your transport problem solved. Turn away if you're Catholic for a second. Sunday desecration. Whenever protests are made by churches against Sunday desecration, there is always one absentee, the Roman Catholic Church. This church, posing as Christian, leads the way in all forms of gambling rackets and Sunday desecration. The funny thing is, technically speaking, I think the Sabbath is actually on a Saturday, yet they've decided that it's on a Sunday, and nobody should do any funny business on a Sunday, such as Sunday sport and gambling or anything along those lines. I think I didn't like sport or any sort of work or anything on a Sunday, but yeah, another anti-Catholic one there. Says on the back something about during attention to the reasons from the fact that this paper, The Rock, is engaged in bringing and defending legal actions, including actions for damages for libels. Such cases will in and could you give us a donation? Strange. I've never seen that one or heard of it before.
Another thing I want to tell you guys about is this. It's not really close to here. It's a bit of a drive. But there's a tramp, vagrant, society dropout, hermit, whatever you want to call them, guy who quite literally lives in a hollowed out tree. He sort of had some sort of a, well, my sister believes that a lot of people like that have some sort of big disruption, hell of a disappointment in their life. Some big shitstorm happened to them and they basically shut themselves away from the rest of society. And this guy literally lives, I think it's up a hollowed out tree, so you've got to climb up the side of the tree a bit to get into this hollow, and he lives in this hollow in the tree. This is not normal, but it's not a story the dude is relatively well known about. Obviously has a few issues with his life or the rest of the world or whatever, and doesn't even hold his own money. He allows the shop to hold his own money, and then he just goes in the shop and says, I want a bit of this food, that food, boom, 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 and then they just take it off his tab. I assume you might transfer a bit of money to them via welfare money or whatever, and then he just goes back and disappears up the tree again. He might have one person that he trusts who gets him in and out. He may walk into town, I don't know, but he's obviously come off the rails a bit in life, but there is no real hope of showing any of this, and there is no hope at all of interviewing the guy. I probably couldn't show it without even hitting the head with a rock anyway. And it's a little bit of a drive from here, but just something interesting that my sister mentioned that I thought I'll tell you guys about. Yeah, blimey, it's like the second day and it's still raining, that slow, steady rain. I don't realise this one here. Ah, it's this little tiny one in here. Looks like it's going ripe as well. Yeah, just from that one, all the ones coming through. This one here, not much. Well, nothing basically. These branches all coming through from that tiny little one. This sort of rain, you can probably see the hay, there's a couple of cows, neighbours' cows and that. This sort of rain, like you see it's all hazy off in the distance, slow steady rain is what you want because it'll soak into the ground and then you'll get green grass. If you have a hell of a rain, what will happen is it'll just wash out all your driveways and probably run down to the nearest river or whatever, and then you basically, don't really get the green grass. The nearest river is very close to this place where I showed the ram pump, or the Glockerman pump, whatever you want to call it, that my brother-in-law has. It's been broken years ago. That's like, I could walk there in 3 minutes, but the way the hills are curved here, it'd sort of be going away from it. But you can guarantee when you get rain, the river rises anyway. But this is the sort you want to actually get things nice and green, as opposed to heaps of rain, blows holes in your driveway, all disappears into a river, and then in the preceding weeks your grass doesn't get much greener. Whereas this is the sort of stuff that if it's on clay, it'll shrink or even make the cracks disappear in the clay, and give you something for the miserable days of rain, in the form of green grass, as opposed to all just washing away, and you never really actually make use of that rain. We're not there yet, but we're definitely working on it. These would be nectarines. I remember these as a kid. We used to have one right at the back door when I was growing up in Western Australia. You can't see a beautiful colour. You're probably not going to, because the way the sky is so overcast. There you go. Oh, show me the money. Show me the money. Smoke that's loaded. For a small tree this size, this is pretty loaded. That's a pretty small tree actually. Yeah. Like I was saying. Not terribly big. Not terribly healthy either by the looks of it. Ooh. Little edges there and that's a bit smooth. Yeah. That is incredibly noisy crackling. Yeah, it is wet on you. There is actually steam coming off the wood, because that's been in water. But the other stuff that's dry, that was actually part of the dismantled shelf, is probably doing most of the crackling. Might be sap. The front ones are definitely wet because you can see them steaming. It's noisy though. I'm used to everything being in a wood heater and it muffles the noise.